Welcome back to the Hockey Talk podcast presented by Horizon Media. I'm Jacob Fraser and I'll be hosting today's episode. And I'm joined once again by Keanen Tregaskis and Spencer Pomeroy. Today we're going to be recapping the draft, talking about some of the recent moves around the league and free agency. And we're going to wrap up the show with our first edition of Hockey Talk Jeopardy. Before we get into the show, how's it going, boys?
Good. I'm glad Spencer took some time out of his busy schedule to join us.
Yeah, seriously, it's been a while.
I know. I had to move a lot of things around to make this happen, so we got to make this quick because I got other things on my schedule.
All right, we'll keep it moving then.
He's got a big shift at Mark's in a couple hours.
Huge shift. Someone's got to move the stock.
All right, we can just dive right in here with we'll start with the draft. I guess just obviously Matthew Schaefer, expected number one pick, ends up going number one overall to the New York Islanders. Michael Misa, 2 to the San Jose Sharks. And Anton Frundell, a bit more of a surprising pick there at 3 to the Chicago Blackhawks. Guys, what were your thoughts on, let's start with the first round. What were your thoughts on the first round of this year's draft?
Good.
You know what? I'll go ahead. I don't know if it's just I don't know the numbers on this, but just looking at the size of these players in this first round, I don't know if there's something different kids are eating these days or what. I thought they'd be getting smaller because they're always on the TikTok and that. But just the sheer size in this first round, the amount of players above 6 feet. How many guys were there above 6'5"? There was at least 7 or 8 guys above 6'5" on this. So, there was that shift where it was smaller guys, Johnny Gaudreau, rest in peace. But it seems everyone in this first round is nearing that 6 foot mark.
Yeah, that's been a big talking point about this year's draft, just the amount of players that we saw fall because of their lack of size too. I mean, one of the guys that comes to my mind, especially being a Vancouver Giant, is Cameron Schmidt. He's one of my favorite players in this year's draft, and he fell to the 3rd round to the Dallas Stars. I mean, I saw on Elite Prospects, they had him ranked as the number 1 skater and number 1 shooter in the draft. So how does the number 1 skater and number 1 shooter fall to the 3rd round of the draft while he's 5'7", 160 pounds? Like, I guess you look at the junior league drafts, like the WHL, OHL, QMJHL, they're always drafting for size because that's something that you can't teach, obviously. That's you hope to develop these bigger guys. But at the NHL level, I just don't know if I agree with the you can't teach size aspect, especially for an 18-year-old. Like, these kids aren't done growing yet.
Yeah, well, and especially when you look at what some players are doing, like Montreal has Lane Hudson and Cole Caulfield. They both fell because of their size, and Lane Hudson obviously won Rookie of the Year, and Cole Caulfield is a great goal scorer. Yeah, you do need some physicality down the stretch, especially in the playoffs with what we saw Florida did, but having an elite skater and goal scorer, despite his size, is also an advantage as well. Like, it doesn't matter how big you are. If you can score goals, you can score goals.
Well, it's different too if your whole construction of your team is undersized guys. But if it's one guy or 2 guys, that's fine. I mean, look what Marchand just did in the finals. He's 5'8", even,
and he's old too.
Yeah, and St. Louis had a lot of success. So you can find smaller players that have an impact. And I get maybe because it's the first few rounds, they want to make sure. I don't even know. They don't want to take that risk on a smaller player, but I would like to see the numbers in terms of busts. With a size comparison, are shorter players more likely to bust than taller players?
Why did you say it like that?
We got a clip. Thank you, Spencer.
I think the most surprising thing about seeing a shorter player fall so far is that this happened right after Lane Hudson won the Rookie of the Year, right? Like, this isn't like, he won it a few years ago and he's been a bit of an anomaly. This is just happened.
Well, and he was the best defenseman on a team that ended up making the playoffs despite really being a team that was in that conversation necessarily at the start of the year.
Yeah, they selected 5th overall last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at him now.
Well, and his brother Cole falls the year after him or
Mhm.
2 years after him. Like
And
I just don't understand these teams aren't learning their lessons on
yeah,
taking the guy with a ton of skill. Yeah, he might. I think the
speed and
biggest issue.
passing
Sorry, go
are
ahead.
kind of underlooked in the draft if you're not a big guy.
Yeah,
Especially for the defenseman, Lane Hudson was a great passer this year and obviously very fast. And that's a big reason why he was the rookie of the year. Same with his brother Cole, who's selected late and now becoming a highly regarded prospect again for the same reasons.
yeah. I can't remember exactly what I was gonna say, but
Yeah, sorry.
just no, that's okay. Um, just I guess the bigger issue with this is what I was going to say. The bigger issue with the smaller players is, well, if they don't work out and they don't end up being these top six guys, can they fit into that bottom six mold where you want like kind of the heavier checkers and energy line guys? But I mean, one of the prospects that comes to my mind is Montreal Canadiens drafted LJ Mooney in I think it was the fourth round this year. He's one of the most physical players in the draft. He might be small, but he's a physical guy that can fit into that mold, kind of like you were talking about Brad Marchand earlier. Like he can be a third, fourth line guy, and you're fine with that, despite the fact that he's only 5'8", five
Yeah.
foot seven.
I was going to say I would also take that risk on a smaller guy, assuming even if he doesn't fit into the bottom six, because it's much easier to build a physical bottom six through trades and free agent signings instead of relying on draft picks. Like you're not spending top dollar for a guy who goes out there, lights someone up, and plays 5 minutes a night.
Well,
Right?
yeah. Well, your hope isn't that your 20th overall pick is going to end up playing in your bottom six.
Yeah. You
So,
draft in the first round for the elite talent, the players you hope and expect to make your top six, not someone who's going to be a scrappy third or fourth liner.
yeah, for sure. We can move on here. We'll talk. We'll get into who had the best draft in a bit, but before the draft, there were a couple of trades. So JJ Paterka traded to the Utah Mammoth for Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan. What are your guys' thoughts on the trade? Keanen and I talked about Paterka a little bit last episode, but he finally did end up getting moved. We thought maybe he was an offer sheet candidate, but now he's part of the Utah Mammoth.
I thought, well, any other franchise would have gotten more for him, but I thought that Buffalo would have gotten more for him as well because I think the rumor were that the Wild offered Marco Rossi, who would have fit in as a good second line centerman, but I don't know. It's Buffalo. You kind of expected them to fumble this somehow. We're at that point.
See, I really like Kesselring as a player. Like, I think he's a good right shot defenseman. He has a lot of size, and I think he's a good second line guy. And they really needed right shot D-men. But you're right. Like, for JJ Paterka, he's a young player who just put up over 60 points last season. You could have definitely got a lot more for the caliber of player that he is.
Yeah, but I think sometimes like we don't know. Maybe sure there's lots of bad trades that happen, but maybe there was no other better trades. You don't know that, right? And that never comes out. So maybe this was the best offer they got. Which I don't know. I wouldn't believe he's a young player, can play on the power play, scores goals. He shot 15.6%. I think that's pretty good actually. Young player.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything in the locker room or that, but I was just curious. Do you guys know what JJ stands for?
John Jason.
John
You
Jones.
got it. You got it.
The best fighter pound for pound. No, to add to what Spencer was saying, even if this was the best offer, the offseason is still young. It's still fresh. You can't do that right away. You still have time, unless you are getting and wanting a pick for the draft, which they didn't get anyways.
Well, the only thing you risk waiting is the offer sheet, right?
Yeah, but even now, no one's been offer sheeted yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's been a week. So...
yeah, are you guys, just to quickly switch off topic, are you guys surprised by that at all, that there haven't been
it always
offer sheets?
takes some time, but I expect, because of how weak the free agency class is, I think there will be some offer sheeting, especially you look at Samoskevich with Florida, they don't have cap space for him right now. Someone should offer sheet that before they can move the money around. Other players is more expensive, but I think Rossi could get offer sheeted. I think he stays in Minnesota because they got no offense right now, but I think there will be some. Yeah.
Yeah, they usually surprise me. Like, I think me as a GM, I don't really want to do it just because I don't want to give up the picks and stuff like that. But and we've seen other ones. Who was it? Was Keanen? He was an RFA to the Hurricanes, right? And look how that turned out for them. So I don't know. It'll probably pick up though. I think there's a few good names there.
Yeah. Well, especially there wasn't many teams that really moved the needle bringing in outside players other than Vegas with Marner.
Yeah.
There weren't that many teams that significantly improved from UFA signings. There's some good trades and some good players who were retained.
Yeah.
But otherwise, not enough teams moved the needle, especially Anaheim, who you think is going to make a push. They didn't do enough from bringing players in.
Well, maybe the RFAs are their plan B, right?
That could be, and it should be because of how weak the UFA class was. Like, there isn't going to be much parity going into next year based off of what we've seen so far.
Well, and they still have to get Mason McTavish signed, who's an RFA.
And Dostal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, after moving John Gibson, especially, they've got to find a way to keep him. But
I don't even know if they're at the cap floor yet.
Oh, probably not.
They gotta get up on the floor.
Let's shift over to the Dobson trade, which happened shortly after the Peterka deal. Dobson traded to the Montreal Canadiens for the 16th and 17th overall picks and Emil Heineman. Just what are your overall thoughts on the deal? I'll start with Keanen because he's the Canadiens fan here.
That was a highlight of the draft day for me. But I think this was one of the rare trades you look at right away, and it kind of looks like a win-win. You obviously immediately lean towards the team that got the better player, which is right now Montreal. But I think the Islanders used their draft picks wisely. They wanted to trade up for Hagens. That didn't happen, but I think they still got Aitchison and some other prospect. I only know who Aitchison is because of all those highlights of him blowing up players in the middle of the ice. So I think it was a good trade for both sides, and it was the only entertaining thing that happened on draft day, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes. This is tough because I used to be a big Noah Dobson fan a couple years ago, and this player it's completely fallen off a cliff, I would say. It's definitely they're taking a shot on him, which they should because they're a young team, and maybe a change of scenery will help him. But yeah, I think it was a pretty fair trade on both sides. Supposed to be an offensive defenseman, only had 39 points. Yeah, it's okay as a defenseman, but he's we're supposed to be one of the top defensemen. Like in Vancouver, we talked about trying to make a move for him for how long? He was minus 16 last season, and if he's on your top pair, I mean, you just can't have that. The one thing I wanted to bring up, just to hear your guys' opinion, 2018 draft. Obviously, Quinn Hughes, everyone would take first, but where are you sliding in Dahlin, Bouchard, and Dobson right now?
Oh, I'd have to look at the draft. Can't think off the
just
top of my
the
head.
defenseman or everyone in the draft?
Well, like in terms of if you could go back into this draft, Dahlin was 1, but we would probably take Hughes 1.
Yeah.
Who would you take next? Dahlin, Bouchard, or Dobson?
Oh, Rasmus Dahlin 100 times out of 100.
I'd go Dahlin, Bouchard, then Dobson.
I would probably go Dahlin, Dobson, then Bouchard.
See, you and I had this conversation, and I think if he's anywhere other than Edmonton, he looks better, though.
Oh, I don't think so. If
you don't
Bouchard's
think so?
Anywhere other than Edmonton, I think he looks a lot worse.
I think his defensive numbers look a lot better because there aren't many teams with worse goaltending.
Yeah, but he's a McDavid merchant.
If you think so, okay.
People call Cale Makar a McKinnon merchant. Bouchard is a McDavid merchant. Cale Makar at least is like Cale Makar anywhere is going to be an elite number 1 defenseman. Bouchard anywhere else, I'm not sure he's an elite number 1. Like, I don't think he's a $10.5 million player. We'll get into his extension, but he's not a $10.5 million player in my eyes. And you put him on any other team in the league, like swap Dobson and Bouchard between Oilers and Islanders last year. Dobson puts up similar numbers to Bouchard, and Bouchard is a dash 45.
I look at it too, like you say, the goaltending. Well, it's not like he's on the ice and they score on a crappy shot. It's like he's coughing the puck up, like blatant giveaway, and they go in and score. You've seen that so many times. It's not a one-off. It's
Well, that's what I mean when I say goaltending. I talked to this about Jacob last week. It's like every time he makes a mistake is a goal against them. Like there's no one else helping him out.
Yeah,
so it does look worse than it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think let's go back to the draft here. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Let's.
I love veering off the path. Take the road
you don't
less
want to
traveled.
Keep the train on the tracks?
No.
We'll finish off the draft talk here. We'll start with Spencer. Who do you think had the best draft?
The best draft, I'm going with Rick Tockett's Philadelphia Flyers. This is like an old school, smart draft. We stuck to our guns. We're just going to take the best players available. We want new NHL size, speed. And I think they did that. Porter Martone. Did I get that right? Porter Martone.
Yeah.
6 overall. Skill meets power, right? Big 6'3" guy. Scored a lot for Brampton. 98 points, 57 games. And the scouts are comparing him a lot to Brady Tkachuk, which I think if you could get a player like him on your team, that physical size can move the puck. And Danny Briere said he's pretty close to being NHL ready, so I think that's another plus. Not a guy you're going to have to wait on for a long time. So they got him out on the wing, and then they moved up to take Jack Nesbitt, a 6'4" center. Another playmaking size guy. They say he can play both ways, so you could pair those up together in the future. Hopefully that's how it works out. And then they kind of stuck with that motto throughout the draft with the, taking bigger guys, gritty players, just size and toughness, which is kind of how Tocchet wants to play out of the back. And they didn't reach for anyone. They had a plan going into the draft. They stuck to it, and I think they're very happy with what they got.
Keanen, who's yours?
I'm gonna go with the Islanders. Obviously, first overall pick, and choosing the consensus first overall really helps. Schaefer is going to slide right into that top 4, especially with the Dobson-less hole they have there now. Give him a year and
Is he going to fill Dobson's hole?
He's going to fill it. But yeah, then back to the Canadiens trade, they used those picks for Victor Eklund and Kishan Aitchison. You got, maybe the 2 best available at that time? And
oh yeah, they were 2 best available.
You didn't have to give up anything to trade up for Hagens, who they really wanted. You nailed the first round with 3 great picks. You're going to have a good draft, and in my opinion, the best draft.
Yeah, I like both your takes, but I'll say the Chicago Blackhawks. I really like Anton Frundell. It wasn't. See, I thought that Porter Martone would be a better fit for the Blackhawks, just because I think the Blackhawks need to surround Bedard with a big playmaking winger like Martone. But from some accounts, there's the possibility that Bedard might not be a centerman in the National Hockey League. And so if you move him over to the wing, I think Frundell is a great fit alongside him. He's a 2-way center. He can play make. He's got a good shot. And then they took Nestor Sill, another big winger, 6'5". He's only 187 pounds, but I think if you do keep Bedard at center, he's a guy that can fill in on Bedard's wing and really be that size that I thought Martone would be a great fit in. And then Mason West at the end of the first round, he was one of my favorite players in the draft this year. I think he's probably one of the most raw prospects. He was that quarterback, couldn't decide between hockey and football, ended up choosing hockey, and now he's a first-round pick in the NHL draft. And I think just with the upside there, with how weak this draft class was, it's a safe bet on the upside to go for the 6'6" centerman from Minnesota high school hockey. We can shift over now to free agency. Let's start off with the Florida Panthers. We talked about it last episode. How are they going to be able to keep Marchand, Bennett, and Ekblad? Well, they managed to keep all three. Sam Bennett, 8 years, $8 million. Brad Marchand, 6 years, $5.25 million. And Aaron Ekblad, 8 years, $6.1 million. I mean, I don't know how they managed to make this work.
No tax state.
Well, all three of them took pay cuts, so that's gotta help. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on the Panthers' moves there, and can we see them go three straight?
I hate to say it, but they had a great offseason. There's like being able to retain all three of them was amazing, and I think it's one of those situations you can argue no tax state all you want, which it could be a bit of the reason. I don't think any of those players are taking that deal in a Canadian province, but it's also, you look at it and go, everyone's taking a pay cut, so I'll take a pay cut as well to keep winning. Like, you're not going to see that in Toronto when Marner was making his ridiculous money. Same with Matthews. Bouchard wasn't going to take a pay cut because look what Draisaitl is making. Look what McDavid's rumored to make in this upcoming year. When nobody takes a pay cut, you're not going to as well. And then you look at Florida, they're all taking pay cuts. Yeah, I'll do the same to play with the guys who I enjoy playing with and play for a team that is consistently winning.
Well, according to Gary Bettman, the taxes have nothing to do with where free agents are signing. According to
one
Bettman
of those
himself.
Things I investigated myself and found no wrongdoing.
Yeah, so
he's right behind you. Just ask him.
Let me ask you, Gary. Gary. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Best offseason I had the Panthers. I mean, they could have easily packed it in one back to back and said, "Oh, you guys can all walk," and we'll try and figure it out. But being able to bring in a core players, Sam Bennett, I was hoping he was going to hit the market and the Canucks were going to get him. But
no. Here's the thing: anywhere else, if he goes anywhere else, he's going for the money, which would have been like 10+ mil.
Which I would have been fine with them overpaying for him. I mean, you see the impact that he has on the ice.
The Canucks aren't going to make the playoffs, though. That's the thing. That's where he thrives.
If they signed him, maybe they would.
Once, though.
Yeah. But, yeah, they have bigger problems. But, yeah, be able to get those three players. I mean, Marchand, I don't know how he's going to be in a few years. I didn't really look at the structuring of the contracts and, how they can get out of these. But at least for the next 2 or 3 years, these should be good value. And I would expect to see them back. And it shows a lot to the organization and Paul Maurice that these players want to come back, take a bit of a cut, and they care about winning. And, that winning culture has been built, which they can attract other players. I don't know if they're going to have cap space for that, but they can fill. I mean, I could play on the bottom six there. We could make another run at it.
We got one more year of the LTIR loophole. They'll bring someone in.
Yeah. I mean, Bill Zito, their GM, he got asked about how he was able to bring them back, and he basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he said he didn't do anything. It was all them. They wanted to come back and make these pay cuts.
I said, you build a winning culture, people take pay cuts.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about Mitch Marner a little bit earlier, but let's dive into that a little deeper. So $12 million, 8 years with the Vegas Golden Knights. The Toronto Maple Leafs get back Nicholas Roy, or Roy, however you want to say it, whether you're French or English. You got to feel for Leafs fans, man. This guy, you do though. This guy, he didn't waive his no move clause at the deadline. There was a deal in place, rumored deal in place, to bring in Mikko Rantanen, and Marner says no to the deal, and then they end up, instead of getting Rantanen back, they end up getting Nick Raw.
I mean, there was that whole thing. Apparently his wife was like 7 months pregnant at the time, so that, whatever. But
so is mine.
There's also, you don't want to move towns during that. You don't want to move town. But I was going to say...
So is mine, and we just moved.
You didn't move halfway across the continent.
He's got money.
Hey, we're going to do this.
He's got money to pay people to move.
No. Also, there's the alleged tampering, which, if anything comes to that could be a reason why he didn't waive his no move clause as well. We'll see it, but it is also Vegas, so assuming they do tamper, will Bettman do something about it? That's another question.
Ask him.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary.
No, it was a good deal for Vegas, but essentially you're subbing out Pietrangelo for Marner, so we'll see what the decor looks like when they look foolish against Edmonton.
Hey, Marner played D in Toronto for a couple games.
True.
He could do it in Vegas.
Let's see him score a playoff goal first.
I actually really liked this move for Vegas, and I didn't really have it on my radar. I never really thought of Vegas. Like, Marner to Vegas. He doesn't seem like a Vegas guy, right? But if he's on the top line with Eichel, I think he should be in for a great season. And yeah, they didn't move him and whatever, but obviously Marner thought they had a chance to win this year. He wants to win with Matthews, and they got pretty close actually. Barely losing out to Florida. I don't feel bad for the fans. This happens all the time. It's the price of being a sports fan. But I still think Vegas's decor is going to be okay. But Marner he's definitely going to put up 100 plus easily this season.
Yeah. The whole thing there is just, will he show up in the playoffs? That's the only thing that's the real question, because he didn't do it in Toronto. Blame the pressure all you want, but good players rise to the occasion. Great players rise to the occasion.
I do expect him to show up a little bit more in playoffs in Vegas, just because of the guys that he has around him. Like you talk about Eichel, like those guys know how to win, whereas the guys he had around him in Toronto, like they were snake bitten a little bit. You could tell they got nervous getting to the second round.
Yeah.
Like they were like, oh crap, we made it to the second round. Like we don't know what to do here.
Yeah. But the thing with Eichel, he only had a goal in 11 playoff games this year too, though. So
yeah, he struggled.
That is a bit of a question.
Yeah,
but if he gets a guy like Marner who can set him up.
They're both the playmakers, though. You can't have two
Eichel
playmakers.
can score, though. Eichel can
back and forth for 10 minutes on a 2-on-1.
Maybe. I don't know. I like Eichel though. He can score. He just It just wasn't a very good Vegas team last year.
That's fair.
Let's quickly shift over to Nikolai Ehlers. He was the top free agent this year that actually made it to free agency. Signs with the Carolina Hurricanes, $8.5 million for 6 years. What are you guys' thoughts on that deal? The Hurricanes also added Keandre Miller in the trade with the New York Rangers. Spencer gave up his pick earlier for best offseason. I'll give a sneak peek into mine. Mine's also the Carolina Hurricanes here. But just what do you guys think on their moves so far, Keandre Miller and Nick Ehlers?
The Ehlers signing was really good because he puts up great numbers in middle 6 minutes for Winnipeg. The Miller trade, they paid a little too much, but it's also Carolina. They could rebuild, make him better, but at the same time, you could have gotten for less.
I like the moves. I mean, Ehlers going to play on, top line Aho Jarvis. It's one of the top lines in the league, I would say, off the rip. I don't think that, the term isn't super long. The money's probably about right. I thought he was going to get more. And then Miller, just another piece to add to the back end. He's, he's hit or miss, I would say, most of the time I watch him. Bit of a streaky player, but it's definitely a move they needed to make, especially losing Rantanen and Natchez. So they kind of plug him in, and they should be one of the favorites, I would say, in the East again.
Yeah, and we'll shift over to the Pacific division here. Few big signings. Brock Besser stays in Vancouver, $7.25 million over 7 years. Evan Bouchard, who we talked about earlier, stays with Edmonton, $10.5 million for 4 years. And then Mikael Granlund to the Anaheim Ducks, $7 million, 3 years. What out of those three moves, what's the best signing in your guys' opinion?
The Besser one, in my opinion. We know a couple people who are a little too excited that he stayed, but I do think this was a good signing. I thought he was going to get $8 million for sure. I like the 7 year by 7.5. Now you just got to let Petey fly, and Besser's numbers will improve a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Bouchard one, but I will say about Besser and people who were upset that they signed him, and that they really got pigeonholed into making the move. They weren't going to get anyone else, so they were at the point we might as well sign him, or we're going to be worse off. So they made that deal. But I like the Bouchard one only because it's only for 4 years. If it was like 7 or 8, it would look horrible, or even a Darnell Nurse deal. But it gives them at least the next 4 years to have 4 more cracks at it with Draisaitl and McDavid and Bouchard together. And then if it doesn't work out, they're only on the book for 4 years.
Yeah, you start from scratch.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, that's assuming that McDavid's going to extend.
Yeah.
Well, there were the rumors that he takes a short-term one anyways if he does extend. So let's say he takes another 4 years, or even 3 to match UFA with Bouchard. Then that same thing, you got those next 4 years, and then you start from scratch.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, I think it's a bit too much money. I wouldn't have given him that. I actually think on a longer term deal that the 10.5 makes a little bit more sense, but on a shorter term deal, just because the cap's going up, but on a shorter term deal, like you look at Dobson's contract at 9.5, I would think that should have been the comparable, especially since you'd hope that he's taking a little bit of a friendlier discount to stay with the Oilers. But
yeah,
I really liked the Besser deal. The Granlund deal, I'm not a huge fan of, but the Ducks can afford to overpay guys right now, especially on shorter deals.
I think the Granlund one was like, hey, we need to spend money somewhere.
Yeah.
So they just
gotta get on the flow, so they just throw bags around. Who wants money? We need players. We gotta field the team, right?
We have to get to the cap.
We literally have to.
Give him $7 million.
Granlund and his agent went in there and said, "We want $6 million, 3 years." They said, "No, we have to give you 7. We have to do it." So that's where we are.
What Ken Holland did with Cody Ceci.
Yeah.
Little spoiler on my worst offseason. $3 million. I'll give you 4.5.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with the best offseason. So I gave mine the Hurricanes. I'll start there. Yeah, I mean, Nick Ehlers, you just mentioned Jarvis, Aho, Ehlers. That's going to be such a dynamic, elite offensive line. And their top 6 in general just looks really good. You've got Svechnikov, you've got Logan Stankoven, who they extended 8 years, $6 million. I think that's a great deal for the Hurricanes, and that'll age so well for them. They needed some help on the back end. I think they still are short a little bit. They need another right shot defenseman that can play in their top 4, but getting Keandre Miller, I think, was a big move for them. Now you got Miller and Slavin as your 1-2 punch on the left side, and Goss Despair on the left as well. And they still have $10.5 million in cap space. They can still make those moves to bring in that right shot defenseman that they need. So I really like their offseason. Spencer, you go next. You already mentioned yours, but maybe give a little bit more context.
Yeah, mine's pretty. I'll keep it quick because we talked about it. But the Panthers, Marchand, Ekblad, Bennett, retaining your championship pieces, right, at a good cost. They've managed their cap so far with signing those deals too, so they'll have more stability and freedom in the future. And you're preserving your championship core, which is the big thing. They've built this nice culture. It didn't happen in the offseason, but Seth Jones is still going to be there next season, get the deadline, so that's going to help. But keeping those pieces and then just finding a few fillers for the bottom 6, and this will be a great offseason. I don't think you could have, if you said with Marchand, Ekblad, Bennett, and that you would say they got to keep all 3, I think the fans would be ecstatic.
Yeah, I got Montreal, a little bit of an unorthodox offseason because they didn't sign any notable free agents. They didn't have any high draft picks that they used for themselves. They ended up making that great Noah Dobson trade. They had a huge defensive hole, which he fills right away. Then you get rid of Logan Mailloux because there's no room for him now. Bring in a solid middle sixer who's physical, and Zach Bolduc scored 19 goals in his first full year with St. Louis. And that was right after you traded away Emo Heineman in the Dobson deal. You bring in someone who scored more goals, had better physical presence in the middle 6 for St. Louis team. And this is one of those things, how many other 25-year-olds are you going to sign for a win now club less than $10 million? Especially with the rising cap.
Mhm.
So I think this was a very good offseason. Great business from Kent Hughes. You didn't have a deep draft class. Use those two first round picks for a proven top 4 defender and shore up the middle 6 with another very young player.
Yeah, I've liked their offseason a lot too. Keanen, do you want to keep going and tell us about the worst offseason?
You can capitalize the L in LA Kings because this was an awful offseason from them. You let Gavrikov and Spence go. They're making a combined $8.5 million this year. Who do you bring in? Cody Ceci and Brendan Dumoulin, who are making a combined $8.5 million this year. You just willingly downgraded on both of them. And to add to that, you didn't have the offensive power that Edmonton did down the stretch in that series. Who do you bring in? Corey Perry on, I think it was a $4 million deal. Like, yeah, that's not going to get you past the first round. Say what you want about the Corey Perry curse and his finals losses, but you willingly worsened your D-core with the only general manager who will willingly do that.
Worst offseason, eh? How about the Boston Bruins? They're not much direction there. They're not really. Their moves are kind of old school hockey. They signed Tanner Jeannot, guy, just a physical guy. They lost 3 defensemen. They just haven't really done much, and there's so many holes on this roster, and they haven't done anything. And all the moves they've made are just expensive, and they're old school hockey. They're just getting toughness when they need to make moves for size, skill, and speed, and they just haven't done that yet. And I just don't see what else they could do. This should just be a complete write-off year for the Bruins, and they just traded for Arvidsson too, which is just to help the Oilers load that off. So it's
there are a couple of teams just willingly help the Oilers offload contract.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a deal under the table or something, or they get a cup ring if they win too, but it's quite the fall off, I would say, and they need so many pieces, and they just haven't done anything. And you'd think like an organization like the Bruins would do more to have a quicker turnaround and at least give the fans some hope, but it just hasn't been there yet.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't even mention the fact that they moved Marchand for basically nothing at the deadline too.
Yeah.
Like,
they could have paid him more before he even said, "Hey, send me to Florida."
Well, he wanted to stick around. Like, yeah, I don't know what direction the Bruins are heading in right now.
I smell collusion.
Yeah.
Tell Gary.
2011 collusion, Gary.
My worst offseason, I've got the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, I talked about the Bouchard deal. I'm not a fan of it, but their big signing in free agency was Andrew Mangiapane. Like, that's their top get in free agency. And then you give Trent Frederick that big extension. We talked about this bit last episode. It's just an overpay for a guy who just didn't seem to fit into the team during the playoffs and stuff. Like, I don't even know what to say about him. Like, it didn't work out. Like, you can cut your losses, but they decided to extend him for 8 years at almost $4 million a year. So there's that, and then they bring in Curtis Lazar. Like, they just haven't improved their roster. They offloaded Evander Kane, they offloaded Victor Arvidsson, and now they only have $2 million in cap space, and their team looks worse than it did last year. So I don't know if I expect them to be able to get back to the Stanley Cup final. I mean, we'll see what kind of magic McDavid and Draisaitl can make there, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of their offseason this year.
What if they had Carter Hart?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you missed the biggest part is that they didn't add the goaltending position.
Yeah, and
the worst part of their offseason was the lack of a goaltender move.
Well, John Gibson was like the number one guy that everyone thought they were going to go get, and I was surprised to see that, who was it, Detroit traded for him?
They could have matched that, and they're more desirable than Detroit right now.
Yeah,
for a guy with a no-move clause.
Yeah. I just didn't really like their off season. All right. Well, let's get off the off season talk. And Keanen, I'll hand things over to you. You're going to be running our first game that we have on the show today.
No cheating, no Google, no nothing. Okay.
No.
No.
I'm looking at you, Spencer.
I'm closing everything.
I've got the cheat sheet here with the answers and the questions. We got 5 categories thanks to Jacob, who made these categories and then told me to host the show. We got draft.
I didn't pick the questions though.
You didn't pick the questions. That is true. Draft busts, draft steals, Stanley Cup runners up. For this one, we'll get the team and the year because multiple teams have lost multiple times. Historic free agency signings and historic coach hirings. Do we have a taker for first overall, or do you want me to?
How are we buzzing in on this?
Hand up.
Hand up, sure.
Okay.
I will start us off.
Jacob's
$100.
youngest.
Hey?
Jacob's youngest. You picked a category. Or you're okay, go ahead.
What, you want me to pick first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Let's get this rolling.
Okay, I'll just start draft bust for 100.
This Canucks player was taken 1 pick before Matthew Tkachuk. Jacob.
Olli Levy.
Olli Levy. Let me make a little tab here.
Who is Olli Levy?
Oh yeah, you don't get the points there.
Hey buddy, this is our first time playing. I get the points.
Okay, yeah, we'll give him the points.
Okay.
That's a last warning.
Okay.
All right. What do you want?
I'll do draft bust 200.
Oilers' first overall pick, known for dramatic celebration after first career goal.
Who is Nel Yakupov?
He didn't even let him finish asking the question.
I
knew where it was going.
That's what happened. That's literally what happens on Jeopardy.
Once his hand is raised, though, you have to stop reading the question.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll do that.
Draft bust 300.
Drafted in 2012, this 4th overall pick played only 37 NHL games. Jacob.
Who is Griffin Reinhart?
Correct.
Draft bust 400.
Defenseman. That's all I know. He is a defenseman.
Taken first in 1999 by a now defunct franchise, this player scored 64 goals in 455 games.
Patrick
Spencer.
Stefan.
Correct.
Patrick Stefan.
You didn't see me put my hand up while you were reading the question?
Did you put it up first?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, yeah.
But he already knew who it was. Give him the points.
Hold on. Let me adjust my monitor. I don't have my second computer here. So I gotta...
I said it because he put his hand up and I knew who it was. So I just said it because I knew he was going to get it.
We giving it to Spencer then?
No.
Well, I'll let... Okay, sure. I'll take it.
You'll take it? Okay.
Yeah. Let's finish off draft bus here. 500.
Labeled a can't-miss superstar, this draft bus was taken first overall in 1993.
Oh, I know this.
Would you like the team? Oh, Spencer.
Alexander Daigle?
Damn it. I was thinking that.
You want to rephrase that?
Alex Daigle? I don't know how to say it. Who is Alex Daigle?
There, I'll give it to him because
I'm so bad, dude. I was thinking that, and I'm like, I don't want to look like an idiot.
I don't know who the team was.
Not gonna look like an idiot.
Ottawa Senators.
Those Senators. Daigle.
Senators, yes.
Right? Okay.
All right, that's all of the draft busts.
$500, eh? What's the free agent one?
Historic free agent signing.
Historic free agents 100.
Largest deal handed out in the 2025 offseason. Ooh, that was close. I will give that to Jacob.
Who is Mitch Marner?
Correct.
I didn't know
Jacob.
the answer. I just put my hand up.
I'm surprised that took you guys. You didn't know that one?
I was thinking, who was
it? Let's go draft steals 100.
Selected 130th overall in 2012 by a Canadian team.
Who is the team?
Yeah.
Winnipeg.
2012.
Spencer.
Who is Dustin Byfuglien?
Incorrect. He was
No, he's
selected
drafted by
by the
Chicago.
Atlanta Thrashers.
Oh, that's right.
Would you like... Oh, I know. I won't give any... Spencer again.
Who's Mark Scheifele?
Incorrect again. Are we taking away points for bad answers? No? Okay.
Okay, we can't figure it out.
Connor Hellebuck.
Oh.
Okay, I'll go draft steals 200.
This draft steal was selected 171st overall in 1998 and has 2 cups. Spencer.
Who's Pavel Datsyuk?
Correct.
The Datsyukian one.
All right, your go, Spencer.
Draft steals 300.
This other Red Wing was taken 210th. Spencer.
Hendrik Zetterberg. Who is Hendrik Zetterberg?
Come
Who
on.
is Henrik Zetterberg? All right, it's close. You're up 100 points, Jacob. Spencer, what do you want?
Draft steals 4.
Selected 178th overall in 2010, this player has been a Selke finalist and Cup champion. Spencer?
Who is Patrice Bergeron?
Incorrect. Patrice
Fine.
Bergeron was selected
He's a second round pick.
yeah, also 10 years before that.
What year was this?
20. Oh, you said.
2010.
2010. 130, 2010.
Would you like the team?
Yeah.
Ottawa Senators.
And he's a cup champion?
He is a Cup champion.
Obviously not with the Senators.
2010 Ottawa.
I'll give you 10 seconds.
Cup champ 2010. Selke finalist.
All right, it was Mark Stone.
Oh, God. That was a good one.
Yeah, Spencer, it's yours again.
500.
Selected 171st overall, this left winger became the highest scoring player at his position and a Hall of Famer. Spencer.
Who's Alex Ovechkin?
Incorrect. It was just at the time,
First
not
overall.
at the time. He was the highest.
I'm not listening to the question.
Jacob.
Who is Pavel Bure?
Incorrect.
What year was this
Can
again?
you say the question again?
I don't know if I had the year in that one. I think it was... Let me see if it's in here.
Read the question.
McGillney.
Incorrect. Selected 171st overall by the LA Kings in 1971, this left winger became the highest score. Spencer.
Is it Luke Robitaille? Who is Luke
It
Robitaille?
Yeah.
I didn't see he got drafted in 71.
Yeah. He was
Obviously not the highest scoring player anymore. I'll remind you once more. Say who is
Luke Robitaille?
Okay, Spencer, we got Stanley Cup runner-ups, historic free agent signings, and historic coach hirings.
Historic coach hirings for 100.
This coach has led his team to the Stanley Cup every year since being hired. Jacob.
Who is Paul Maurice?
Correct. All right, Jacob.
Let's go free agents. What numbers left? 200?
200 through 500. You only did the first one.
Okay, 200 free agents.
This Russian signed a 7-year deal with the Rangers in 2019. Jacob.
2019, sorry. Artemi Panarin.
Yes.
Who is Artemi Panarin?
Yeah. We got to get this who is nailed down. It's like the whole thing about Jeopardy is say who is, and we've done it like half of the time.
Okay, let's go free agent signings 300.
This goaltender signed a 15-year, $67.5. Jacob.
Who is Rick DiPietro?
Correct.
Free agents 400.
Free agents 400. This player was signed by the Bruins in 2006 and led them to a Stanley Cup 5 years later. Spencer.
Who is Patrice Bergeron?
Incorrect. He was drafted by Boston. We already
I
said
know
that.
who it is.
Jacob.
Who is Zdeno Chara?
Correct.
Damn it.
Free agents, 500.
Every Boston question I ask, he's just going to say, who is Patrice
Bergeron until I get it.
Free
Jacob,
agents, 500.
signed with the Ducks in 2005. This player helped lead them to their first Stanley Cup 2 years later. Jacob.
Who is Scott Niedermayer?
Correct. All right, Jacob, we got 2 categories left.
I was going to say Lucas Spiza.
Stanley Cup. Stanley Cup runner-ups and historic coach signings.
Stanley Cup runner-ups, 100.
This expansion team was 3 wins away from creating NHL history. Jacob.
Vegas Golden Knights in 2019 or 2018.
2018. Who is Vegas Golden Knights?
Who is Vegas Golden Knights in 2018?
Spencer probably would have said Boston.
They were expansion team. No, they're original 6.
Stanley Cup runner-ups, 200.
This Canadian team rioted and was the beginning of the longest cup drought. Spencer.
Who are the Vancouver Canucks 2011?
Incorrect. You should have let me finish the question. This Canadian team rioted and was the beginning of the longest cup drought in Canada history. Spencer again.
Toronto Maple Leafs 1967.
No. Just the country of Canada. You had half the answer. When was the last time a Canadian team won the cup?
Oh, Montreal Canadiens 1993.
Okay. Incorrect again.
Calgary Flames is Calgary Flames, and I want to say it was
2004.
2000.
Incorrect.
What?
Okay. Vancouver Canucks 1994. It was the year the cup drought began for Canada and the Canucks rioted.
Oh, what a dumb question.
That's why I said let me finish the question.
Oh, okay.
I thought you guys would have gotten that one.
Is it me again?
It's you again.
Okay, we'll do the next one on Stanley Cup.
Lost the Stanley
400?
Cup Finals in 7 following a controversial goal call in the previous game. Jacob.
Who are the Calgary Flames 2004?
Correct.
We'll do Stanley Cup drought. Is this 400 or 500 now?
400.
Okay, 400.
This expansion team lost in the Stanley Cup the year the league went from 6 to 12 teams. Spencer.
Who are the New York Islanders 1943?
Incorrect.
I've got no idea.
I have no idea.
It's the St. Louis Blues. They got swept by Montreal.
Okay, Stanley Cup 500.
Prior to the Oilers, they were the most recent team to lose back-to-back cups. Spencer.
Who are the New Jersey Devils?
Incorrect. Jacob.
Who are the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Incorrect. I give 10 seconds.
Besides the Oilers, who lost back-to-back.
It's the Boston Bruins in 1977 and 1978. That's why it's the 500.
Okay,
right.
Coaching, whatever the
200.
lowest number is. Yeah.
Hired in 2013, he has a pair of Stanley Cups and is the longest tenured coach active in the NHL. Jacob?
Who is Mike Sullivan?
Incorrect. He got fired last year. So he's not the longest tenured active head coach.
He's an active head coach, though.
Not the longest tenured.
He's tenured active head coach.
Who else has a pair of Stanley Cups in the last decade? Spencer.
Who's John Cooper?
Who is John Cooper is correct.
Oh, man, I'm an idiot.
You tried to argue Mike Sullivan.
He's still a tenured head coach in the NHL.
He is. I should have said with the same team there. Do we want 300?
Sure.
Well, isn't that all that's left is coaching?
300, 400, he could have said 500.
I guess he could have.
Is this the last category?
Yeah, the last 3 questions. Hired in 2005, this coach became the first to join the Triple Gold Club, Stanley Cup champion, Olympic gold, and world champion. Spencer.
Who's Mike Babcock?
Correct.
Go!
Well, Spencer, if you get both of these correct, you only lose by 100 points. So
Okay.
these are some older ones, I'll tell you that right away. 400. This coach turned the expansion Islanders into a 4 straight championship team.
Who's Patrick Waugh?
Incorrect.
I'm just
I
thinking
mean-
Islanders head coach.
I have no clue. They had Mike Bossy, but he was a player, not a coach, so I don't know.
Any guesses, Jacob?
No.
Who is Al Arbor?
Literally never heard of him.
He was going to say Patrice Bergeron.
Ron.
For 500, hired in 1971, this is the winningest coach in NHL history with 1,244 regular season wins. Spencer.
Who is Stan Bowman?
Incorrect. You're close. Stan Bowman's the general manager of the Oilers.
Oh, sorry. Who's Joel Quenneville?
Incorrect again. Hired in 1971.
Why'd you say he's close then?
How is he
It's
close
Stan
to be?
Bowman. It's Stan Bowman's dad. What's his dad's name? I can't
know it.
remember what his dad's name is.
Dan Bowman.
Nope.
Steve Bowman.
Nope. All right. Who is Scotty Bowman?
Oh,
Scotty! Oh.
Bowman. I was close enough. I said Bowman.
And then John Quenneville.
Joel.
Joel Quenneville. All right. So Jacob wins the first one, 3,000 to 200. Unfortunately, we are not giving you $3,000 because we don't have
I
that
only
in
got 200?
2,000.
Oh.
You said 200.
I
was
okay,
like,
my
whoa.
bad.
3,000 to 200.
If I included all of his incorrect answers, that
True.
would probably be correct.
I would owe you money.
Who is Patrice Bergeron?
Well, next
Let's
week
get a
we'll make
sponsor
one.
on the show so that we can actually hand out some cash.
Yeah. Then I'll go try hard. I even cheat a little.
We'll need to send a producer to his house. Make sure he doesn't cheat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can wrap it up there. Thanks, guys, for the show. Thank you, Keanen, for hosting Jeopardy. Do we want to rotate hosts, or is Keanen the permanent Jeopardy
Should
host?
we make winner hosts?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Jacob hosts the next one. It'll be competitive. The two idiots.
Yeah. Two brain cells
I-
come together.
I got some good questions that.
When you do
in
one
my
of the
head.
answers has to be Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find one for Patrice. All right. Well, yeah, let's wrap up there. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week with our next episode.